just a little interjection from future Skylar at the end of this video. I just wanted to say that this review is probably quite incoherent, and for that I apologise. I didn't intend to start The Great Hunt as soon as I am starting it, and I wanted to film this video while my thoughts for The Eye of the World were just thoughts of The Eye of the World without any kind of other thoughts from book 2 coming into it. But like I said, I didn't intend to start that so soon, and then I hadn't fully planned this out, so it's probably quite jumbled, and for that I really do apologise. I hope that you can work out my thoughts anyway. I'm really sorry. Didn't intend this to happen. I'm just filming this quite last minute, but I hope you enjoy it anyway. Today is going to be a little bit of a weird video for me, because I don't tend to make kind of individual specific reviews for specific books in video form. I write reviews on Goodreads, but generally on here I tend to talk about a bunch of books at once. I don't tend to do individual book reviews. But recently I started a new series which is an exciting series to start, but also a very intimidating series to start, and I thought it would be fun to kind of document my thoughts throughout, because it is such a long series. And of course that series is The Wheel of Time by Robert Jordan. This is 14 books plus a prequel, so 15 books altogether, and I think I'd like to kind of document my thoughts throughout, just because my thoughts at the beginning, my thoughts at the end are likely to be very different, because obviously you find things out, and I feel like it's not the kind of series that I can do kind of one wrap up for, because I'll just kind of forget really how I felt in the earlier books, because usually if I do like a trilogy I would think about doing just like a wrap up for all three, but 15 books I feel like kind of exceeds that limit a little bit, so I wanted to not necessarily do one for every book, but at least every couple of books, just to try and gauge where I'm at. So I wanted to start with the first book, mainly because I can talk about this book without big spoilers, so it's kind of, I feel like it's good for people who are maybe thinking about starting, and I can kind of talk my way through that. If I do go into spoilers I will say beforehand, so I'm kind of hoping to make this mostly spoiler free, but then maybe at the end I'll get into some more spoilery territory and predictions and things, of which there are not very many. And also I forgot to say, if you are interested in my thoughts as I am reading through them without having to wait for these videos if and when I make them, follow me on Twitter, because on Twitter is where I kind of post most of my updates and thoughts, generally not really spoilery, but my general opinions you will get mainly on Twitter, so if you're interested, do follow me over there. So just to start out, just because this was a fun statistic that I learned about yesterday, is I just want to talk about why this is so intimidating a series to start, other than the fact there is 15 books, because if you go on Wikipedia it has a lovely little table of word count and page count and audiobook length. So for example, if you were to listen to the audiobooks on 1x speed, it would take you 19 days, 5 hours and 25 minutes. Like, it's 4.4 million words. Like, sorry, by the time I've read this I would have read 4.4 million words from one series. Like, are you kidding me? And it's like 12,000 pages in total, and it's just nuts, right? So like, it's quite intimidating to start, because, you know, the books are not small, you know, they're like quite chunky. This is like 800 pages. They're not small books, there are so many of them, and if you're not, you know, used to big series like that or big books like that, it's really intimidating to actually go for. But I'm actually really proud of myself for actually starting this, and I'm really excited about it. So in terms of the actual book, I gave this a 4 out of 5 stars. So this is a good start, because I mean I didn't expect to get a 5-star on the first book, right? For a series this length I'm happy to put the groundwork in first, and there's not going to be like super action packed beginnings and things, because you just need to kind of introduce everything. But this book actually did surprise me quite a lot, because I was expecting something a lot more difficult to get into, and I really did have no trouble getting into this whatsoever. I pretty much jumped right into this and was immediately like, oh, okay, I know what's going on. Because I know people always joke about fantasy books being like, oh my god, I don't know what's going on for the first like 200 pages, and like generally yes, but that's kind of the point. It's a fantasy world, is kind of the point. But this one was surprisingly easy to get into. It wasn't super heavy and like complicated, like, oh my god, there's all this magic and there's this. Like, it was not that deep. So I really had no trouble getting into it. As an introductory book, I thought it was really good, because we got to see a fair amount, I mean, I say a fair amount of the world, like, I don't know how big this world will end up, but we got to see quite a lot of locations and meet a lot of different people, which for a first book I kind of like, because it's, because it is the first book, I expected it to be a lot more contained than it was. So at the beginning we meet a bunch of the main characters who live in this tiny little village, and they're kind of secluded from the rest of the world. Like, they don't really know what's going on elsewhere. It's just this tiny little remote village. And to be honest, from the beginning I kind of expected to spend most of our time there, because it was the first book. I didn't expect to travel much, but we left that village like a few chapters in. Like, it got moving pretty quickly, which I was really happy about. And yeah, like I said, so kind of the premise of the book is the characters are making their way from this village to another place, like on the other end of the country, continent, I don't know, but like it's quite a while away, and there's a lot of trials and tribulations in between. But we get to see a lot of locations, which kind of helps to solidify the world a little bit and kind of give you an inkling of different areas and things going on throughout. So if I talk about characters, I'll just give you a quick rundown, if you haven't read the book, about the characters in this book. There are about seven main characters, I think, in this, which we only get the POVs of a couple. I think we get POVs of 3 of them. But the main one that we really get in this book is Rand. So Rand is one of the boys in this village. He lives with his dad on a farm. He's a little sheep herder. And as the book starts, there is a festival about to happen in Emmonsfield, which is the village. He makes his way into the village with his dad to prepare for this festival, and we meet 2 of his friends, who are called Matt and Perrin, who are another 2 of the main characters. And Matt is kind of the prankster, jokey one of the 3, and Perrin is the more quiet, reserved one, who is a little bit more thoughtful and thinks about things a little bit more. So those are like the besties, the 3 of those. So it's Rand, Matt and Perrin. And then also in the village we have Nynaeve, who is the wisdom of the village, and she's essentially not a healer, but that's one of the things she does. And she is she's like the youngest wisdom they've ever had, and she's really stubborn, and she kind of just knows everything, or she thinks she knows everything. And one of my favourite personality traits about her is she carries a big stick that she hits the men with when they're being stupid, which, I'm just saying, I would like to embody that personality. And the other character from the village is Egwen, who is the daughter of the mayor of Emmonsfield, and she's Rand's kind of love interest. When we first kind of hear about her, is kind of in the context of, oh, he fancies her, whatever. And she's very sweet, she's very naive. She did kind of get on my nerves a little bit sometimes with the kind of naivety and thinking she knows better than she does, but she's a sweet character. And then the other 2 main characters we get are Maureen and Lan. So Maureen is an Aes Sedai, which is kind of she uses magic, and they're kind of a group of women who use magic, and the opinions on them are very controversial, is the word I'm looking for, maybe? I don't know. Like, people either think they're like the devil's work and they need to all be killed and they need to be wiped out, or they're like, you know, they do so much and they protect us and, you know, whatever. So Maureen is one of those, and everyone in this village has like never seen an Aes Sedai before, and they're like, oh my god, like a little bit wary. Her motivations are kind of unclear on what she wants and why she's in this village, but she meets Rand, Mat and Perrin, and she like offers them, like, you know, she offers them each like a coin to, you know, do some work for her or whatever. And Lan is her warder, who is kind of her protector, and he's also very mysterious, and again, just not really, we don't really know too much about their intentions and what they want when we meet them. So those are all the characters that we mainly follow throughout this. And what happens is, at the beginning of the book, there is an attack on the village, and Maureen and Lan take Rand, Mat and Perrin away because they figure out that the attack is targeting them for some reason, or one of them or all of them for some reason. And then Nynaeve and Egwen along for the ride, along with Tom, who is a glee man, and he comes to the village also. He's another character I forgot to mention. Tom is a kind of a storyteller. He plays the harp and the flute, and he's like an entertainer essentially, but there's more to be known about him. And yeah, so those all leave and they're making their way to Tar Valon, which is where the Aes Sedai reside, to try and figure things out. So that's generally the premise, and people get split up and things happen and bad things happen and chaos and mystery ensues. It's just really good. So in terms of characters, I actually really liked the characters in this. I thought they were all generally pretty likeable. They all kind of felt real. Like, for example, when I said about Egwene being kind of a little bit annoying sometimes, she's very naive, etc, etc, she is like 16, so like it kind of makes sense for her age, and her character makes sense for her age. They all kind of feel that way, and they all work together, and they all have different personality traits that kind of offer something a little bit different. Like I said, with Rand, Mat and Perrin, all three of those are kind of very different personalities, but as a group they work because they're different, and their friendships kind of feel more real, and they feel like they've known each other since they were children, you know? So like I said, with the plot generally following this journey across the country, and, you know, bad things happening here, there and everywhere, what I really liked was how along the way we meet a lot of seemingly random people who are very fleeting, and we meet for like a chapter or two and then they're gone. But I liked it because you can kind of tell that we're gonna see them again. I kind of like this approach of familiarising you with characters here and there that maybe are not so important now, but later on they can be brought back for a purpose, if that makes sense. Like, it didn't feel like it was like, oh, there are all these characters I need to remember, because they're all kind of like little interactions or, you know, a couple of chapters or whatever. But you kind of get this feeling that they're going to come back later. And that happens a few times. Like, there are a lot of characters in this book. Just overall, there are a lot. But I didn't feel overwhelmed, which I think is kind of important, again, with a series this big, to not feel overwhelmed with information and characters and people and things you need to remember. So I liked that. And again, I also liked that we got to see a lot of places and a lot of locations. So, like, you didn't really linger too long in one area, and you didn't really have time to get bored of a location. So that was interesting and fun. And I know that it's kind of a thing that people say that the plot of this book is very Lord of the Rings. I know Alex told me there is pretty much essentially exactly the Fellowship of the Ring, ? I don't know. I haven't read Lord of the Rings, but I think that's a very common opinion, that they are very similar. So if you have read that and you like that, maybe try this. If you haven't, I can't really speak on that, but I really enjoyed it anyway. Just overall, it just felt very kind of classic fantasy. Like, I feel like some people might not necessarily like the like how classic the tropes feel, just because, I mean, this book came out in like 1990, right? So like, while they might feel overused if a book comes out now, I think with the context of when it came out, it's not too bad. Like, you know, you've got the Chosen One trope, you've got the fight against the Dark One kind of thing going on, and, you know, prophecies and all these kinds of things. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was fun to kind of go back to that kind of classic fantasy vibe. But yeah, I think the only issue I really had, if any, was the pacing. Sometimes was a little bit off for me. Like, there were some definite lulls and highs throughout. Not enough to make me be like, this is a slog to get through, but there were some definite points kind of in the middle where I was like, we need to move, you know? Not too many, like, it wasn't that big of an issue. I still really enjoyed the book for what it was, and I didn't have any issue in picking it up and carrying on with it, you know? So there were some pacing difficulties, but overall not too bad. It was just a really enjoyable book. To be honest with you, I would recommend this. I was very scared of it, and I don't really know, I mean, I know why, but I was glad that it wasn't as intense as I was anticipating it to be. It was very easy to get into, very enjoyable to read, and yeah, I don't know, I just would recommend giving it a go. Just try it out, you know? I think as an introduction, like I said, I think it's really good. I've just started The Great Hunt, which is book 2, and I'm really excited, to be honest with you. I said I was going to talk about, like, predictions, but to be honest with you, I don't think I really have many. But I guess it's like a check-in for next time. Where I stand with characters right now is Matt is my least favourite for sure. I just don't find him very likeable. And, like, he has some difficulties in this book, I know, which makes him unlikable, but I think as a character, even before all that stuff happened, I didn't really like him. I'm never a fan of the, like, oh my god, I'm such a prankster, I'm so funny. I'm just not a fan of that. I just find it kind of annoying. Nynaeve was my favourite from the start. I really liked her. She did kind of start to get on my nerves a little bit with her overly stubbornness, but I still really like her, and I think, spoilers, the bit with Lan towards the end where they had their kind of romantic angst moment, it literally made me cry. Which is so pathetic because it was like one scene, but like, oh, I was so sad. And I've heard that the angst just kind of gets worse from this point on, so yay for me, I guess. Lan, how do I feel about Lan? I don't know. We still don't really know much about him. I thought it was really interesting to learn his backstory a little bit more. And Maureen is still very mysterious. I still don't know like anything about her like at all. Although, as I said, I started The Great Hunt and we already know more about her, and I'm only like 5 chapters in, because we're getting more POV shifts, which I'm really appreciating, because I feel like The Eye of the World was very focused on, you know, 3 characters, which was a good thing for the first book, don't get me wrong, but I am glad that we're opening it up a little bit more and learning a little bit more about other people. Who else? Rand, I think it's pretty, I could eat my words, but I think it's pretty obvious throughout that he's the, like, one who's been chosen. Mainly because he's the one we get most of the focus on in terms of POV chapters and things. Like, we get a couple of Perrin, not very many. We get none of Matt, because obviously the, like, mystery with the dagger. But I think it's quite obvious. I don't know. Like, as well as the fact that, like, you know, he's the one that sticks out like a sore thumb in his village. You know, he's tall, he's ginger, and, like, nobody else is. And, like, people comment all the time about how he doesn't look like an Emmons fielder, and, you know, that whole thing. I think it's pretty obvious that he's the one that the Dark One is after. I don't know, that didn't really bother me. I don't think, like, I was never like, oh my god, that's so obvious. Like, I don't know, it didn't really bother me. Egwen is cute. I don't really have much to say about her, to be honest with you. I don't really have that much of an opinion on her. I don't know, that I feel like it's just a case of we haven't spent much time with her, really. Like, I don't know. Everything we've seen of her has just kind of been a bit like, oh look, she's kind of silly and she's the love interest, and, you know, like, she hasn't really been fleshed out yet, and I would like to see more of her before I develop an opinion. But yeah, I don't know, the only thing that was like kind of a prediction, but like it's not a prediction really, which I buddy read this with my friend Lucy also, and she said the same thing, independently of me, where when we meet Elaine, it kind of seems like, I don't know, I just get this feeling that something's going to come about where Rand is going to kind of stumble onto the throne or something. Like, I feel like there's going to be something there. Mainly because before we meet Elaine, when he's talking to Loyal in the inn, there's like, this bit where he's like explaining what it means to be Targaryen and the web and the pattern and all these things. And Rand is trying to like explain it, and he's like, oh, you know, if I wanted to be an innkeeper instead of a sheep herder or something like that, that wouldn't be as big of a shift. But if I wanted to be a king, and Loyal just kind of goes, ha ha ha, yeah, that'd be wild, wouldn't it? And then like a chapter later, we meet Elaine, who is like the heir to the throne, and it's like, am I making a connection? I don't know, but I feel like that could happen. I can see it happening. I can see some sort of thing happening there, but I could be completely wrong. I'm just generally not very good at predictions with anything, and I'm just seeing where the wind takes me, you know, rather than trying to predict things. Because as well, anything I predict, I feel like anything I predict can only be up to like book 4, because it's so massive. There's just no way I'm going to be able to predict anything that happens, you know, in book 15, 14. You know, like, it's too early for that. So I feel like anything I can predict will be very short term. So I don't know. Again, I'm just going wherever the wind takes me, and I'm just along for the ride, and I'm really enjoying it, and I'm really excited to continue. I'm more excited than I thought I would be, to be honest with you. And now I watched the the teaser clips for the Amazon show, and I was like, oh my god, it's Danica, it's Lan, oh my god, like, I'm just excited. I'm having a great time, to be honest with you. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this mess of a review. I don't know. I just think this was really good, and I think everyone should give it a go if you are a fantasy fan, or if you're getting into your adult fantasy and this intimidates you. Don't let it. Like, I was intimidated by this, and it was really easy to read. Much easier than I anticipated, so I would definitely recommend giving it a go, and I will keep you updated on my journey throughout the Wheel of Time series, because we're going to be here for a while, and I'm just really excited and curious to see where this goes. So thank you for watching again. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you next time. Bye.